14th. The actor's attorney, Priya Chandri, called the case against her client a witch hunt against Jonathan Majors, driven by baseless claims in a statement obtained by People. The alleged victim in the actor's case has not been identified by authorities, and it is unclear whether she has her own legal representation. 30-year-old woman was granted a full temporary order of protection last month. Good, meantime, filed for divorce from Devon Franklin, her husband of 9 years. That was back in December 2021. The Shazam, Fury of the Gods actress told People in May 2022 that she has learned to not be as much of a people pleaser. I've learned that not everybody's going to get you or like you, and that's okay. And knowing who your tribe is and being really thankful for that, and knowing sometimes they're not your tribe, that's okay too. It appears they're tribing, or trying to make us believe they're tribing. Are you buying it, Jordan?
No, I don't know.
You don't even care, do you? Say it, you don't care.
Not really. I don't know them, but I just want everyone to get along and everyone to be happy.
Look at that. You sound like a life coach. You sound like a life coach. And maybe Jonathan Majors needs it, because remember, well, I'll educate you because I don't know that you've been following it, but after he was charged with assault for whatever went down in that vehicle with his ex or lady friend, a bunch of people came out, some anonymous, some not, other stars, other people who work with him, and said, not a good guy, sounds familiar, a lot of piling on. Maybe it's true, maybe it's not, wasn't there. But can she, who's pretty wholesome, very beautiful, and extremely talented and smart, by all accounts, can she resurrect a man who is charged with assault of another woman?
I mean, if there's smoke, there's often fire. So if there are that many people around him warning about his behavior, I'd say listen to him, because so often in Hollywood, what happens is all of these warnings get ignored. And then 10, 15, 20 years later, it's just this giant mountain of problems that went unaddressed for years. Just stomp it out early. Listen to people who are warning about him and hear him out.
And what you just described is exactly what went down here, okay? And might I add that he might be making the right PR moves here, or maybe they're in love, I don't know. But if they were flying private, the carbon footprint there, it's not gonna help you people, okay? Not people who care about the environment, okay? He should tread lightly in all areas. I'll give you the last word and remind people where they can enjoy your content.
Well, Sharon, thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure. You can follow me on Twitter at Jordan Newell, and you can check out my podcast at insurgentspod.com.
We appreciate it always having you on, and I enjoyed it, including the lighting. And I'd like to get a lesson in that, because I'm stuck with this one image. It's fine, but it's not exactly, when I'm in a different mood. Jordan doesn't give me a different mood, but we'll see. Always a pleasure. I'm Sharon Reed in for Dr. Rashad Ritchie. This is Indisputable. We hope you'll join us again.
Universal health care, raising the minimum wage. If you want clean water, clean air, clean food, keep going. If you are a doer of the deed, I want you to stand up to your feet right now. We have courage enough, conviction enough, people power enough to stand up and do what is right for ourselves. I am unbought and unbought. Absolutely. So,
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Unboss. This is the show where we ain't got no boss, and we fight the bosses on behalf of those who have them. It's Jessica Burbank filling in for Senator Nina Turner today, and joining me, we're very lucky to have Ben Gleib. Ben, it's good to be back in action with you.
It is great to be with you, Jessica. You moved out of town, and this is the only time we get to socialize.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. This is our catch-up time, and we do it by bantering over the news. It's a beautiful thing.
That's right. Because why?
Because we ain't got no boss.
And because we got the news like Jagger.
We've got the news like Jagger, Ben. We're gonna get into it. Everybody, don't forget to share the stream, send some love in the comments, and subscribe. Ben, you ready to get into this first story about Mr. Ron?
I've never been more ready for anything in my life, and that's just a medium amount of ready. So let's do it.
All right, everyone. You may have heard this, but Ron DeSantis launched his 2024 presidential campaign, and in a populist fashion, he did it with the richest guy on earth, Elon Musk. They did it on a Twitter space yesterday. Elon Musk was right at his side, and it went hilariously bad. Here are some bits from that.
All right, now it's quiet. And we want to welcome you to this historic Twitter Spaces event, and more broadly, a first in the history of social media. Tonight, I'm pleased to introduce two individuals who've done more to loosen the. Okay, sorry about that. We've got so many people here.
So let's see.
It's like they just keep crashing, huh?
All right. Well, it's certainly an incredible honor to have Governor DeSantis make this stark announcement.
You did hear that right. Elon, towards the end there, got interrupted by elevator music. This went so hilariously bad. The delay of DeSantis's announcement for a bid for the president, it was delayed more than 20 minutes thanks to the technical difficulties on the call. As to why he announced it on Twitter versus literally anywhere else, it was a typical DeSantis reason. So, CBS News reporting, DeSantis said he chose to announce via the social media platform because of his distrust of the media after its coverage of his response to the COVID-19 pandemic. He then praised Musk for purchasing the social media company. So when DeSantis was finally able to make his announcement, he sounded shook. Let's take a listen to that.
I understand that you may have an announcement to make. We've got, I think, a record audience assembled here. Probably the biggest room that's probably ever been assembled online. What would you like to tell them?
Well, I am running for president of the United States to lead our great American comeback.
Wow, he really did a good job keeping it a secret right up until that point. DeSantis went on to parrot a bunch of right-wing talking points, so we're gonna spare you regurgitating those and having to listen to any more of the nonsense from Ron DeSanctimonious. But now that he's officially launched his bid in the 2024 GOP primary, let's take a look at how those candidates are doing with the most recent polling. So you can see Donald Trump's at 58% and DeSantis is behind at 20%, Mike Pence at 6%. So, I mean, mean, Pence being considered there, it's very obvious he's running. When he was asked, Mike Pence, are you planning on running for president? His response was, well, I'm in Iowa, aren't I? Which is basically a yes, but I'm sure the people of Iowa love that the only reason he would ever come is for his political career. So the Twitter launch was pretty bad, but he's still getting beaten badly by Donald Trump. What did you make of all of this yesterday, Ben?
Well, firstly, Jessica, on Pence, you might think 6% is so low that somebody would abandon the plan to run, but in Pence's mind, he's thinking 6% of people have never liked me before. So he sees this as a huge boon in the polls for himself. So he's very excited about those numbers. DeSantis, who according to when he finally released a launch video after the Twitter Spaces debacle, released a video with his actual face in it announcing his candidacy. Apparently pronounces his own name Ron DeSantis, Kermit D. Frog style. So we have to start using that. I mean, it is a disaster. Somebody claiming to want to run the free world, to run.
It's a disaster, Ben.
It's a disaster. That is great. Run DeSantis here, hoping to solve all the planet's problems. It's very strange, and they could probably sing the Rainbow Connection on account of the Target debacle that they're all targeting now as well. Why are there so many clothes about rainbows is a whole nother question, but it's not a good beginning to a guy who tries to be as Trump-like as he can, tried to go on Trump's former platform and failed pretty miserably. I think better than DeSanctimonious, his nickname should be Ron DeKissass, because he's just always trailing right behind Trump.
Something that I quote all the time, because I think it's such a beautiful description of what to expect, is comedian Troy Bond says, Ron DeSantis going into a presidential debate with Donald Trump would be like watching a Michael Jackson impersonator do a dance-off with Michael Jackson himself. I think it's a beautiful way to put it. But yes, Trump is handling this in a weird way, right? We saw him take to Truth Social and post some pretty bizarre stuff yesterday. Ben, did you see any of this yet?
I did. It's mind-boggling, even for Trump standards. You never thought Hitler would be involved in a post, a fake Hitler impersonator. So please clue us in as to what specifically that was, because I'm not sure I believe my own eyes or ears.
Let's start with this headline. Trump posts impossibly insane fake audio of Hitler, Soros, and himself crashing DeSantis campaign announcement. So here's a sample from that.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to our Ron DeSantis Twitter space.
Hello? Is my microphone working correctly?
George, can you just wait while we...
Hello? Can you hear me?
We can all hear you, George. Can you just hold on for a second?
Hilfa, I don't think they can hear me.
I can hear you fine, George. Just speak to the
I don't think George knows how to use Twitter.
Hello? Can you hear me now?
Can I please make my big announcement now? Everyone just...
Hello?
Just shut up, George.
Can somebody just mute George?
Dick, could you try not to cough on the...
Okay, so how are we going to take out Trump, you guys?
Guys from the FBI, this is not a private call. This is a public Twitter space. Everyone can listen in.
Yeah, quick question. What the hell was that? That was apparently the Trump camp using some kind of AI to create a fake version of the Twitter Space campaign launch. But he didn't stop there, of course. He never does. Let's watch some more.
To be an American, and I won't forget the men who died.
We are kind of melting the servers.
So Donald Trump's trying to draw some contrast between a supposedly successful campaign launch versus an unsuccessful one with Ron DeSantis. And he summed it all up with this Truth Social post where he said, is the DeSantis launch fatal? Yes. But it wasn't just Trump, of course, who mocked DeSantis, because it was a disaster. Even Fox News had a field day about DeSantis's failure to launch. They posted this on their website. Much hyped presidential announcement, a disaster for Twitter due to tech issues. And then another headline, programming alert. Want to actually see and hear Ron DeSantis? Tune into Fox News at 8 p.m. Eastern time. So everyone's kind of making a meal out of it, right? My take on this thing, and I want to hear yours, Ben, is that Donald Trump's hilarious. He's definitely winning in the economy of attention. He's making Ron DeSantis seem pretty weak, seem like someone who's playing by the rules of political professionalism. And yeah, he's doing things in a way that you don't traditionally do them by announcing on Twitter Spaces. But it's a primary race. It's not a general election. Popularity doesn't matter as much as pleasing people with a lot of power and money, the establishment. And Ron DeSantis, by playing into this typical professionalism and status quo, he can present himself as someone who's more easily controlled, which is oftentimes what the establishment of a political party wants, more so than someone who's chaotic like Donald Trump. And Trump's base kind of likes DeSantis. Like, they don't join in and boo when Trump says bad things about him at his events, which are supposedly Trump's biggest fans. What do you make of it?
So you're saying that you think him doing it on Twitter Spaces was him not playing into the establishment?
I think just the way that Trump goes after DeSantis and goes lower and lower and is totally unhinged and crazy. I mean, he's using audio that's fake of like the FBI and Hitler and Dick Cheney and others, but DeSantis kind of won't punch back and is acting really professional. I don't know, it makes him seem weak and Trump seem strong and entertaining maybe, but it might help him actually clinch the nomination, I think, because that's what the establishment wants. It matters more than popularity for a primary.
I see what you're saying. I disagree. I think that would have been true in a pre-Trump era, but I think now the establishment realizes what the hack that Trump figured out when he broke our media is that you now have to be a constant troll to get the attention, and the billions and billions of dollars of free media that Trump got by just being a disaster headline every day is what they want DeSantis to do. And I think he will start doing it a lot more now that the campaign is officially launched. He didn't want to get down in the mud, but day one, I mean, that the clip cut off early, but that fake Twitter Spaces Trump posted then had Hitler shouting in German, and then Trump comes in at the end and he goes, well, a lot of you are dead in the water. Hitler, you're already dead. He couldn't even say a bad thing about Hitler and the thing other than he's already dead. So I guess rest in peace was his message there. So I think you're gonna see DeSantis come out swinging in the coming weeks now that he's officially launched. He's gonna have to. I mean, you might be right that he's gonna perhaps try and see the first few weeks as an official candidate if he can lay low and see if he can play the high road and see if old politics still has any chance of survival. But I think it's a matter of under a month before he's throwing names back and verbally sparring and posting weird things himself.
I'm actually looking forward to that, Ben. I think as much as we can be very upset and not want to look at what's going on in our politics, we have no choice but to laugh. Like, we have to find some entertainment value in the DeSantis Donald Trump feuding, because if we don't laugh, we cry. That's how I see it. And with DeSantis, it's like, I can see folks saying he's a more capable version of Donald Trump because he is a little bit more professional and he is more of a career politician than Donald Trump. But they seem equally as bad when it comes to their policy platforms. So there's no winning between either of these two candidates.
Yeah, that is the really insane place we are as a country, and the Republican Party certainly is. We literally are in a place where both candidates have racist policies, bigoted policies, anti-LGBTQ policies, and they're just the same on that. They are simpatico, they were buddies, they endorsed each other, they defended each other. And the thing that makes DeSantis more professional is literally just that he has not recently been found guilty of sexual abuse. And he's not currently under indictment and not currently under investigation for government secrets being left around and literally inciting an insurrection on our government and being, what is clear in my eyes, is a traitor to the United States. That's what makes the man more professional. Not a rapist and not a traitor. DeSantis 2024. That should be the slogan.
Yeah, I love that. Just leaving government secrets around in my hotel with international guests. Oops, I'm just leaving classified documents around. Yeah, what an insane state of American politics. I love that you say this is the state of our country. It's true. And especially the anti-LGBTQ policies, because they're really making it more than just about policies. Like, the culture war has taken to the streets and has taken to Target. You may have heard about this. Right-wingers are starting very early with harassment during Pride Month. It's not even Pride Month yet, and they've already begun. Here's Charlie Kirk. Let's take a look.
But there's something really exciting happening with Target, everybody. So Target has a target on their back. Target is freaking out. Target is holding emergency meetings. They're worried that they're losing their customer base. Everybody, keep the pressure on. We need to go after Target in a very serious way. It is time for decent, ordinary Americans who do not believe in radical ideas in either direction to just say, I will not allow my kids to be corrupted by this trans agenda. And it looks, Target looks like they're caving. They say they're putting the clothes in the back. I want Target to go bankrupt. I want them to close. I want Chapter 11, okay?
Let's get into some of these details of what Charlie Kirk is talking about here. He's referencing the annual Pride merchandise that's sold at Target stores. Here are some examples of what they're selling. You've got rainbow suits, you've got shirts that say queer. Of course, he says, the anti-trans agenda is what they're fighting for. They talk about the trans agenda being at the heart of this. The LGBTQ plus community has been under attack for quite some time. And because of these direct threats from right-wingers like Charlie Kirk and the likes, Target had to release this statement. They said yesterday, for more than a decade, Target has offered an assortment of products aimed at celebrating Pride Month. Since introducing this year's collection, we've experienced threats impacting our team members' sense of safety and well-being while at work. Given these volatile circumstances, we're making adjustments to our plans, including removing items that have been at the center of the most significant confrontational behavior. Our focus is now on moving forward with our continuing commitment to the LGBTQIA plus community and standing with them as we celebrate Pride Month and throughout the year. So as Target states, it's because of fear for employee safety, which is incredibly sad. It shows how easily Target will cave just for a buck to make their customer base happy. But now additionally, customers posted videos on TikTok showing Pride merchandise displays have been moved to less visible locations, including all the way to the back of the store when they're usually in the front. So take a look at what this one creator on TikTok highlighted.
People get on my nerves. So why somebody came in complaining about the first thing they see when they come to Target was a Pride station. Complains upper management. Upper management folded like a pretzel. And they made my girl right here move the whole section, well, not by herself, but they had to help her. The whole section was full of Pride clothes and had to go to the back of the store because guests didn't want to see it. So look at my friend here, moving all their Pride stuff. Offended, and shame on them people.
Now, all of this comes at a time where we've got an unprecedented fight for LGBTQ rights in America. Reporting from NBC, a historic 480 anti-LGBTQ bills have been filed in state legislators across the country this year, according to the American Civil Liberties Union, with lawmakers enacting laws to curtail education on LGBTQ issues in schools, drag performances, and transition-related healthcare, among other provisions. A poll from CNN shows how this year compares to previous years. So you can see in 2018, the number of anti-LGBTQ bills introduced in state legislators each session. So 42 in 2018, compare that to the 417 in 2023 with the data that they were using, or just from last year, 180. We're already at more than double. So as a reminder of the state of things, let's look at this Matt Walsh tweet from yesterday. He said the goal is to make, quote, Pride toxic for brands. If they decide to shove this garbage in their face, they should know that they'll pay a price. It won't be worth whatever they think they'll gain. First Bud Light and now Target. Our campaign is making progress. Let's keep it going. I don't know, kind of sounds to me like they're trying to do cancel culture. I thought they hated cancel culture. Now they're trying to cancel Target. I remember a time when Donald Trump was campaigning and he held up a rainbow flag that said LGBTQ plus for Trump. So a lot has changed in the right. And one of the TikTok creators that I love, Victoria Hammett, posted the analogy of the frog in boiling water and the descent into fascism on the right. That if you throw a frog into a pot of water that's already boiling, it'll jump out. But if you put a frog into room temperature water and then you turn up the heat until it's boiling, the frog will actually stay in and end up dying. And that's really how we see the descent into fascism on the right in America. Ben, I want to bring you in here. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, except sadly, there's no separating the Republican Party from the country at large because we're allowing it to happen. So it's the descent into fascism as a country that we are witnessing and suffering from. And there is no great solution being implemented yet to stop that. Because, like you said, just a few years ago, the Republican Party in some ways embracing the rainbow, and that I thought was long settled, that they fought that maybe 20 years ago and then it was all good. And now, because culture wars are politically beneficial to them because it's red meat to the base, they just do it simply for political gain without any sensical rationale behind it. I mean, Charlie Kirk saying something very exciting is happening, and all of them just chomping at the bit, salivating over how they get to make political points over a company just embracing people and embracing people's differences, and then lying about it and saying they have transgender underwear for toddlers. It's just not true. And a TikToker bringing it from the adult section into the kids section and pretending it's kids section, and that becomes fact among these brainless people. And I don't think you can blame Target for taking some actions to adjust it, because their employees didn't sign up for minimum wage jobs or low paying jobs to work in a war zone and to have to confront angry idiots that are coming in there roided out after vlogging in their cars about how fascism's already come to America after they literally just probably inhaled some ketamine and then went and pumped out some quick workout and then storm angrily into a Target. And that's not their job to handle that, to have to deal with that. It's just rainbow clothing, and these people are acting as though it's something that's destroying America. Matt Walsh on his show, it's what I talked about in my Rebel HQ video that just came out today, says that everything leftist is satanic. Everything leftist is from the devil. When you come from that perspective, there is no way to have a reasonable argument. There's no way to shut that kind of discourse down unless we start strengthening and enforcing hate crime laws. Somebody goes into a Target, tears down a rainbow display, that should be prosecuted as a hate crime. That's how you can push back against this. Otherwise, you're gonna have people continuing to make huge scenes, and you're not gonna be allowed to just support people. Hannity said in his show yesterday, why would Target wade into these political issues? Why are they taking controversial stances? They're there to make money. No, Sean, you're there only to make money. Some companies might be there to actually provide services or products for all people who might need those things. And if they don't see that and they just see the company themselves as being political and them needing to respond to a political act when that's not true, we're not even coming from the same base point, and there's no way for us to ever see eye to eye. It's a real big problem.
Yeah, there's two main sources of hypocrisy in what you just said. One, these are folks who really love the free market. They really love the idea that supply and demand is what controls what products and goods and services are made in our economy. Perhaps Target is just meeting demand with supply. There are people who are members of the LGBTQ+ community who might want to wear a rainbow shirt during Pride Month. And it's really antithetical to the rights notion that they talk about a lot, that we live in a free country and a free society and we can't have the government infringe too much on our rights, but yet they think it's their right or their duty to make it so that people can't belong to a certain community or have a certain sexual identity or sexual orientation or have a different gender identity than their sex assigned at birth. That's absurd. If you really believe in a free society, people should be able to have whatever identity they want and live their life however they choose to. It doesn't hurt anybody else. And so it's so antithetical to all these things that they claim to love and support. And it's clear that their hypocrisy just goes in the direction of they really want to live in a world that adheres to this patriarchal, very traditionalist Christian lifestyle. And that's not a lifestyle that everybody wants. So if you want to live in an actually free country, maybe we don't cancel Target for selling rainbow t-shirts. It seems simple to me. Any final thoughts on this, Ben?
Yeah, I agree with you completely. And another clip I saw in that Hannity clip that I show in my video is one of the panelists says, all families want to be able to do is go into Target in peace, and they can't do that with these displays. The very premise of all of these thoughts is so bigoted and closed-minded and just factually inaccurate. You could go in peace by just seeing another group represented, taking a deep breath and continuing to walk, and your peace is still intact. When the peace is destroyed is when you see that and all of your political leaders on your side of the aisle say, this is war, this is unconscionable, this is indoctrinating children, while they don't say a damn word about the literal grooming and abuse of children in the Catholic Church that just came out again this week about numbers in states in our country that have been far higher than ever reported before. Charlie Kirk's not encouraging a banning of the Catholic Church when they literally are molesting children. If that's not the perfect proof of this hypocrisy, nothing is.
Yeah, how cowardly to walk into Target and be like, it's a rainbow t-shirt.
My peace is destroyed.
You're so great.
No. My eye.
All right, we've got to take our first break. We've got more for you on the other side.
All right, well, the Young Turks special election day coverage dropping.
An amazing power panel.
Look at this panel. You want to talk about power?
It's like a smart Destiny's Child.
We're all too strong.
We start a revolution. Yes, another one.
Aren't you excited?
Wow. And then Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, everybody. Yay!
You know, this is where it started in a lot of ways.
Why is he lying? Because these are acts that you can commit with impunity.
Most of us are usually in boxer shorts underneath.
I went with the pants today.
This is the first ever power panel with Donald Trump as president.
We have elected the top Twitter troll in the country.
We have to stop pretending that race is not an issue in this country.
Now keep in mind, racism had gone away until Barack Obama brought it back.
That's right.
They want to protect life so much that they want to ensure that insurance companies don't cover your maternity care. You don't see a lot of news coverage in the mainstream media of the peaceful Black Lives Matter protests that happened throughout the country.
Black Americans are hurting. Minorities in this country are hurting.
We always talk about starting from the bottom up, but the problem is the bottom up is always the least amount of power. No one cares about them, and until someone actually cares about them, then we'll do something about it.
Please, for God's sake, America, understand, acknowledge, and work towards getting to a new reality where Black lives actually matter.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Unbossed. And hello to our members. When we say members make the Young Turks possible, TYT really means that. It's not hyperbole. We couldn't do it without all of you. So if you would like to become a member, and why wouldn't you? You can sign up today at tyt.com/impact. And we can make positive change happen together, starting at $4.99. Your membership supports our initiative here, give you independent news. We have some initiatives that impact policy and makes real change in this country. So today is as good of a day as any to become a member, tyt.com/impact. And also, we have to remind you that you can check out the Unbossed podcast. So you can listen to us wherever you get podcasts. So Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you listen, search for Unbossed, and then you can follow and rate us with 5 stars. If you prefer to watch, you can still rate us with 5 stars so that your podcast listening friends end up seeing us on their feed. That's very important. So now, the best part of the show, which is what you all are saying in the comments. Twitch, thanks for being a subscriber. Thank you, Coffee Beer Dragon, for subscribing for 32 months. That's a lot of months. We appreciate you. Canada Skull Dragon says this all might make DeSantis seem more reasonable and stronger than Trump. That's my worry. Either way, both are not good. Yeah, I agree with that. He's not as reasonable as he seems. Larry Swan says, beyond DeSantis and Trump being the same, I'm just as concerned by Dems suppressing a primary against Biden while parading democracy in front of the voters and saying this is the most important election. So Biden is your only option. Yeah, that's not very democratic. I think we get stronger candidates when we have competitive primaries. Our YouTube and super chat, or our YouTube super chats, Two-Headed Dragon said, take that to the bank. Robbie says, such a good duo. I agree. 420 JR Man, Junior Man says, bossless Burbank. What, Ben?
I also agree. You and I are a great duo.
Yeah. Let's do some more news. We got the news like Jagger. You ready to get into our next story here?
News like Jagger. I'm ready. Yeah, I'll stop singing now.
Yeah, you don't have to stop singing, but yeah, we'll get into this next story. We can sing the news. That's fine too.
I think we should. Slow jam it.
Yeah, we could slow jam the news. Well, this one isn't a very musical theme, doesn't make me very happy. We're gonna talk about the common theme in corporate America, where the top executives hoard all of the wealth for themselves. In a recent discovery on retirement, that theme still rings true. So they found the top 5 US executives hoard $9 billion of tax-free retirement money as workers face limits on their own retirement. So that report comes from A Tale of Two Retirements from the Institute for Policy Studies and Jobs with Justice. They found that the top 5 executives of S&P 500 firms held a combined $8.9 billion in special tax deferred accounts at the end of 2021. Income taxes will be due on this compensation when they withdraw the funds. Income taxes, you have to pay them when you claim that money. So in the meantime, they're gonna benefit from the tax-free compounding of investment returns from that money. So what does that mean in more detail? This is reporting from The Guardian. These so-called top hat plans allow unlimited tax-deferred retirement while ordinary workers face strict limits on their 401k retirement plan contributions. The survey found that at many of these companies, a sizable percentage of workers, in some cases as much as half, had no money in their 401ks. So let's talk about who some of these top executives are. Let's name some of the bosses. So Doug McMillon, not surprising, CEO of Walmart. Thomas Pritzker, billionaire chair of Hyatt Hotels, Craig Minar, Home Depot chair, and Paul Seville, chair of NVR. So they're using their forces for evil, really hoarding wealth, $9 billion of it in special tax deferred accounts, and the rest of the country. So about 42% of Americans aged 56 to 64 have zero retirement account savings. So let's talk about just 2 of these guys. Let's talk about Walmart CEO Doug McMillon, and let's talk about Thomas Pritzker, the billionaire chair of Hyatt Hotels. At Walmart, CEO Doug McMillon held more than $169 million in his deferred compensation account at the end of 2022, enough to generate a monthly retirement check of more than $1 million. Meanwhile, among eligible participants in Walmart's 401k plan, nearly half, so 46%, have zero balances saved for retirement. The median pay at Walmart is $27,136 annually. Thomas Pritzker, the billionaire chair of Hyatt Hotels, is sheltering $91 million from taxes in his deferred pot. The report found 36% of eligible participants in the hotel chain's 401k have not been able to set aside any funds. Half of Hyatt employees make less than $40,395 annually. Ben, Is this fair? How ridiculous is this? How are people still showing up to work every day and working for these guys? I mean, they have no other choice, but it's insane to me that the pitchforks aren't out yet.
I mean, they're starting to be out in different sectors. You saw it recently in strikes in teachers unions. You see it right now at the WGA strike, but it's always incredibly glaring and just seems so cruel and greedy when you see side by side the starkness in the numbers. And I don't ever understand why the people who are in charge of these companies, especially when it comes out in public scrutiny, under public scrutiny, that they make 1,500 times their employees, or their employees don't have the ability to save $1 for retirement. They don't say, hey, guess what? I'm cool with making just 500 times what you guys make, and let's take the other many tens of billions of dollars and distribute that among the workers and add $5,000-$10,000 to each of my employees' salaries, which would significantly change their lives, and they'd be a hero, and it would just be the right thing to do, and they would still be multi-millionaires. I don't understand it. But further, this story gets to the heart of, again, how this country is so different than so many countries in the world, where where it's just clear that they value all people more than America seems to value rich people more than others. It's just so sad that in this country we have so many, even tax laws, the very structure of the system is set up so that people who are already so fortunate, are already so wealthy, get the extra benefit of the tax code and get to shelter money that then gives them enormous payments monthly when they retire, and regular workers can't save $1. In any decent country, the laws should obviously be the same or benefit the poor, benefit the middle class, benefit those who can't afford it. And the fact that our country is set up this way, it almost makes you feel like we were founded by a bunch of rich white slave owning dudes wearing ridiculous wigs. It's almost as though that's the point of view they came from, is like, let's make sure we can set ourselves up good. I don't hear you, Jessica. You were speechless based on what I said.
I was. Yeah,
it was hard for you to even understand it.
Yeah, I think the folks in the wigs didn't consider that people would have to toil for the entirety of their lives only to have to keep working into retirement age. And these folks that don't have money in their 401k accounts, they have to retire on Social Security. And that's in jeopardy right now because Republicans want to hold the country hostage. The debt ceiling has been raised 78 separate times since 1960. There's no reason why they can't raise it. What they want to do is relitigate the budget that's been passed. That's like getting a credit card bill and trying to change what you've spent money on. A prior Congress already voted on the budget. We've raised the debt ceiling under Donald Trump without a fuss. What they're really trying to do is use their current political power for a political agenda. And what's at stake? People getting their Social Security checks. People who are retired will have no money to buy food and keep their housing. Even Janet Yellen was quoted saying, there are two things on the chopping block if the debt ceiling is not raised. Can you guess what one of them is? Let's watch.
And if Congress fails to do that, it really impairs our credit rating. We have to default on some obligation, whether it's treasuries or payments to Social Security recipients. That's something America hasn't done since 1789.
All right, so our defense spending, the checks are going to clear for war before the checks clear for people who are retired. That is ridiculous. That's a statement on our moral priorities as a nation. It's also unconstitutional for the Fed, for the Treasury to make budgetary decisions. That's in the hands of Congress, what gets funded and what doesn't get funded. And for them to prioritize things like defense and military spending and making good on Treasury bonds above our literal grandmothers and grandparents and grandfathers who are retired, purchasing food and groceries. They depend on Social Security checks to live. This is absurd. Ben, do you have any thoughts on this from Yellen?
Yeah, war also that we're not even in. And they could also solve the problem so quickly if instead her statement was, great, you default and we're not gonna pay the military contractors, the private defense contractors, what we owe them. they'd be like, all right, we're cool, we're gonna raise this thing. And the other part of it that also is just another level of deviousness is that they're gonna raise the debt ceiling. I guarantee you this before the deadline will be raised. And it's just drama that they create every couple of years to keep us again in any way they can distracted from what their real job should be, which is legislating things that can help improve the lives of everyday Americans. They get this debt ceiling fight and they're like, great. Kevin McCarthy's like, I get to be on TV for a couple weeks. I get to create some drama and we get to do nothing to help people. It's a real flawless system if you're an
absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous.
My audio might have cut out in the middle of that word, hopefully.
I got you, Ben. Yeah, and the craziest part about all of this is defaulting is not necessary. The US government creates the dollars. We don't need to borrow them or get them from anywhere else. There's no reason we should default. Warren Buffett has said we should have like a AAA credit rating because we can make good on all of our obligations every single time. They're defaulting on purpose. And not only are they making these weird prioritizations of certain things over others, picking things like, oh, we're gonna leave the defense spending as it is, but we're gonna cut SNAP benefits and food, while the Federal Reserve's priority right now is to make more people unemployed. So they wanna cut spending on food stamps and make it so that you have to be working at least 20 hours a week in order to receive them, while they're intentionally making people unemployed. So they're gonna make you lose your job and then make you lose your ability to eat. And not only that, they are going to raise the amount of money they're spending on defense. That is what the GOP wants right now. So as the debt limit debate is raging on, the GOP is asking for more money for the military. So reporting from Common Dreams, House Republicans are now demanding a military budget even larger than the record $858 billion that Congress has authorized for the current fiscal year, as they continue pushing for steep cuts to key aid programs that people depend on to keep their kids fed, to keep roofs over their head. The powerful defense industry, which donates heavily to Democrats and Republicans, more reporting from Common Dreams, howled in protest earlier this year at the prospect of military spending cuts. Let's not forget that the increase in the military budget is something that Joe Biden has been happy to sign off on. Naturally, people aren't too pleased at these misplaced priorities from someone who ran as a progressive. Let's look at some of these tweets. This is Warren Gunnels. Republicans voted for a $129 million tax refund for Amazon, $1.4 billion in a tax break for the Koch family, $1.8 trillion tax cuts for billionaires. But they want you to believe that the problem is the dude who lost his job at Wendy's getting $6 a day in food stamps so he won't starve. Bernie Sanders then tweeted, Republicans in DC are pushing for a massive increase in the $858 billion Pentagon budget, a $1.8 trillion tax break to people who inherit over $1 billion, and a $3.5 trillion extension of Trump's tax breaks. Oh, did they tell you how very, very concerned they are about the deficit? It's a good point. The deficit is a record of the public dollars that have been put out that have not yet been taxed out. And so these folks are complaining about the budget as if the federal government operates like a household, while they're also giving tax breaks to the rich. Ben, what do you make of all of this?
I mean, with where we are financially for the average family in this country, for anybody, and it's 50% of the country that supports these Republican leaders and keeps reelecting them time and time again, to give a tax break to support that for people who inherit over $1 billion, you have to be so fucking stupid. It is unbelievable. And I really like this new device I've invented where I just self-mute myself during swear words so I can get the feeling of the anger that I'm feeling inside my system without getting us taken off of the air. I enjoy it a great fucking deal, to be honest with you. And I'm gonna keep doing it as long as I need to. On the flip side, I do see their argument. $6 is a lot to spend at Wendy's. What, are they expecting people on SNAP to be able to afford both a sandwich and a drink? It's like, choose, dude. We gotta give tax cuts to billionaires. Get off your high horse. Sandwich one day, drink the next. We ain't got time for no Frosties. They're too thick to slurp up through a straw anyway. Get off of your dreams.
Yeah, and all of that money of the Pentagon, it's very important we give it to them because they do such a good job. If we gave them less dollars, what would happen? Maybe they would make mistakes and a bunch of civilians would die. Oh, that's already happening with the $858 billion we're giving them?
Yes, and I know you're about to transition into the next story with that great transition line, but I'm not gonna let you do it yet because I have one other point to make about that. And it was a great transition, and I'm sorry, but it's so insane that they're now clamoring, these Republicans, for increasing the military budget in the last moments of this standoff. Because not only do we have the most insanely bloated military budget in the world, bigger than the next 5 countries combined, but we have such overwhelming military force. And as we all know, we have thousands of nuclear weapons. I've advocated forever that it would actually make us a lot stronger. And this might be the way you could actually finally get through the heads of these meat-headed defense-forward Republicans. We'd actually be a stronger, tougher, more badass nation if we significantly cut our military budget. Why? Because all that would mean is that we would have less low-level weapons. We would have less of the less lethal, less catastrophic ensuing weapons, and our only choice if anybody messed with us would be to use the bigger weapons. We got nukes, that's all we got left. Back off, people. It would make us scarier as a nation. So just to give all this money so we have the ability for people to mess with us on a lower scale makes no sense whatsoever. But of course, logic does not seem to be the strong suit of anybody on the right these days.
No, devoid of logic entirely. I want to jump to graphic 10, which is from the Brookings Institution about the civilian deaths at the hands of the US military. So according to the Bureau of Investigative Journalism, US strikes in Afghanistan, Pakistan, Somalia, and Yemen from 2002 to 2020 killed between 10,000 and 17,000 people. Of these, between 800 and 1,750 are thought to have been civilians. So all of our investment in military technology, you'd think that we'd do a better job actually hitting the target. It's absurd how much money we spend and how many of the casualties are civilians. It's absolutely ridiculous. But these are not the only civilians that are being murdered by agents of the state. We want to remind everyone that it is the anniversary, the 3rd anniversary of George Floyd's murder. So the country still continues to reckon with police violence, and very little changes have been made since 3 years ago. Floyd was murdered after Derek Chauvin drove his knee into the neck of Floyd for more than 9 minutes. What happened in the weeks and months following this was very loud. So millions across the world protested. US companies pledged billions to combat racial justice, or to fight for racial justice and combat racial injustice. Universities promised new facilities to highlight their commitment to ending systemic racism. Law enforcement departments committed to reform. However, not much real change actually came. Even though the summer of 2020, those protests were massive, upwards of 26 million people around the United States participated. The global impact of George Floyd, how Black Lives Matter protests shaped movements around the world. This is the kind of reporting that came out of that uprising in 2020. But most of it was smoke and mirrors. We didn't get tangible concessions that made real change because police are still murdering unarmed people. In the United States, this map shows police killings by state and city over the past year following George Floyd's murder. So 25 states saw a decrease, 19 states saw an increase, and 7 states had the same number of killings. So we've seen the murder of hundreds of Black men at the hands of the police since 2020. In fact, Newsweek has a list of 229 Black people killed by police since George Floyd's murder. Cities are still spending major cash in many cities, a majority of their cash on police budgets. Look at this graphic. Milwaukee is spending $280.43 million. Phoenix, $611 million. In Chicago, $1.6 billion. In Los Angeles, $1.7 billion. In New York City, $5.1 billion. Billions of dollars are going to police forces. And again, this was the liberal response. Remember Nancy Pelosi? Let's watch.
For those who wish to, we will now kneel for our moment of silence.
I don't know. Instead of investing in better methods of public safety that don't result in the death of unarmed Black citizens, we're just gonna kneel in kente cloths. What does that do for people? Let's also not forget the kind of activism that took place. Look at this headline: Blackout Tuesday. Black squares dominate social media and spark debate. What did it accomplish when people posted black squares on their Instagram to say that they're in support of Black Lives Matter and they really don't support Derek Chauvin's murder of George Floyd? What the consequence of this was all of the hashtags that said Black Lives Matter, justice for George Floyd. Now you can't see where people are protesting. You can't see where the nearest local action is because the entirety of social media was these black squares. So what did this do? It made it more difficult for actual organizing to be effective and to take place. And so a lot of the problems we see with the Black Lives Matter movement and the uprising in 2020, not resulting in tangible policy change, was actually a lot of white moderates trying to take action on social media, but not actually doing anything to make personal sacrifices to bring about justice in this country. And we still have a lot of work to do. Ben, I want to bring you in here. What do you make of the 3rd anniversary of George Floyd's murder?
I mean, one of the darkest days we can all remember, and it was such a moment that we wished, as you said, would be this turning point. We believed it would be a turning point during a pandemic when people were afraid to even be within 6 feet of one person. We all went out and protested with millions of people, them all breathing on each other in a way that George Floyd was no longer able to do. And that movement just largely disappeared. Yes, certain local police departments did that, and I'm happy to hear that 25 states had decreases in police murders, but 26 states had increases or the same amount. And so that's not enough to be done. And there were no federal changes that happened. There was no federal ban on chokeholds, no federal ban on no-knock warrants, no federal shift in qualified immunity laws that would be able to hold police accountable. I don't believe in not funding police. I believe in taking the enormous funding and shifting it into parts of the funding and shifting it into alternate methods that make keeping the community safe in a way that is not also frightening to the communities by using social workers and using other people and putting funds into programs that are meant to work. But this is just something that lawmakers will have to do. We need police to stay safe. We also need the police to keep us safe when they are policing us. They provide really important services. Obviously, most of us in danger would want to be able to call the police, but we also would want to not fear them when we do. And no community should fear calling them when they need them. That should be equal justice under the law that we're promised in this country. And that needs to come through aggressively passed legislation on the federal level. But it's very hard for Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer to hit their voting button when they're down on one knee doing a big show for everybody.
Yeah, I think I agree with you about the defund argument. I haven't met anyone who said we need to defund the police and hasn't said the dollars should be allocated towards other forms of public safety. So maybe someone who is a social worker who shows up when it's a mental health crisis, maybe investing in more resources for the public, for kids to actually have access to opportunities so that we have community spaces for kids to go to after school, so that kids have a path to a stable career and don't have to join a gang or sell drugs in order to get by in this country because their communities have been stripped of those opportunities. All of these investments create more public safety. But the police are essentially defunding themselves with their behavior. This headline shows that US cities had to pay a record of $80 million to people who are injured or who were injured in 2020 racial justice protests. So the police are kind of defunding themselves with their behavior and the legal settlements that they've had following the way that they handled the protests. And on a regular basis, we see cops do things that are completely out of line and out of protocol. And then they have to give a big portion of their budget to legal settlements. So they're kind of defunding themselves at this point. It would be much better if we didn't have those legal settlements and instead we took that money and invested in public safety. Very simple. We've got one
And
more
if you
story
wanna-
to get to. Yeah, Ben, any
And
last
just
thoughts?
quickly, if you want to honor George Floyd's memory properly on the 3rd anniversary of his death, pass the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act.
Yeah, I don't think we're gonna get it from this Congress, but that would be the right thing to do. All right, we have a lighter note for this last story. One of my favorite characters in American politics, my pillow guy, Mike Lindell. He is a delusional stan of Donald Trump. He has long claimed the 2020 election is a lie, even claiming that he had data to prove it was a lie. So much so that he said, I bet anybody $5 million that you can't disprove my data. He offered this prize back in 2021. Let's rewatch that.
There's a $5 million prize for anybody that can prove the election data that I have from the 2020 election is false.
Life comes at you fast, Mike. My pillow guy is in for a wild ride. They really can't stay out of legal trouble, these guys. A hilarious twist of fate has come for Mike Lindell. Let's watch this.
MyPillow CEO Mike Lindell, the pro-Trump election denier who even ran for chair of the RNC, now has been ordered to pay $5 million to a 63-year-old Trump voter from Nevada.
Oh no, someone took him up on his bet. That happened on April 20th of this year. Has Mike paid out? No, he has not. He didn't make good on this bet. Look at this headline. Man who debunked Mike Lindell's, quote, blatantly bogus data wants his $5 million. You made the bet, buddy. You've got to cough it up. So here's the backstory. Robert Zeidman was not planning on making the trek to Sioux Falls, South Dakota in August of 2021 for a cyber symposium hosted by Mike Lindell, the MyPillow chief executive, who was pledging to unveil hard data that showed China had interfered with the 2020 election. Zeidman, a 63-year-old consultant, cyber forensics expert, who goes to the shows in Las Vegas with his wife and plays poker in his spare time. So he's, not afraid to take up a wager like he did with Mr. Lindell. He voted twice for Donald Trump because he didn't like the alternative candidates. He thinks there was some fraud in the 2020 election, though not enough to overturn the result. He believed it was possible that Lindell could have discovered evidence that voting machines were hacked in 2020. He was curious to see Lindell's evidence and a bit skeptical, so he thought that he would follow along online. So what happened? According to Robert, I still had my doubts about whether they had the data, but I thought it would be a question of experts disagreeing or maybe agreeing about what the data meant. I didn't think that it would be blatantly bogus data, which is what I found. So Mike Lindell literally found himself putting his money where his mouth is, reporting from The Guardian. An arbitration panel ruled in Zeidman's favor last month, ordering Lindell's LLC to pay within 30 days the $5 million he pledged on air to anyone who could disprove his data. Lindell has refused to pay since the arbitration ruling on the 19th of April. Zeidman filed a suit in federal court in Minnesota last week, requesting enforcement of the arbitration ruling. If the judge sides with him, it would allow Zeidman to collect the money. Ben, this is hilarious. What a hilarious turn of events. What do you think of Mike Lindell having to cough up this $5 million?
He's a great American, and I'm only saying that because I'm stupid. And the only way this guy's going to be able to collect the money is if you go to Lindell's house, because obviously all of his cash is hidden inside of his clunky, uncomfortable pillows.
Yes. I don't sleep on the My Pillows, but that's all the show we have. We have to wrap. We've got watch list for you on the other side of this. Thanks for joining. Ben, it's been great on with you. You can watch Ben's videos on Rebel HQ. Thank you for being with us. It's been a great day of Unbossed. Remember to keep up the faith and keep up the fight, as Senator Turner would say. We'll see you next time.